Greeting everyone. We are moving to the conclusion of our discussion on the migrant domestic workers, their condition at the workplace in terms of, as a result of the documents that they are using. We started by looking at pre 1994 on the documents they were using and how they were treated by their employers. We then looked into post 1994 under what we call a democratic breakthrough, though others say freedom. The condition of migrant workers, mainly in the domestic industry. We then looked into posting 2002 when Aslam documents were then introduced mainly to Zimbabwean victims of political violence, which others were also economic migrants took advantage of it. So as we move to conclusion, we are looking under the special permits that were issued in 2010. We have done a number of videos, of course, discussing the special permits, but it is important to point out that the majority of the people that took advantage of the amnesty that was granted in 2010 are people of low skill, mainly domestic workers who acquired the documentation Zimbabwe project for up to now, which is about 13 years or so. And under the special permits, mostly domestic workers who are on DZP were able to see improvements at the workplace. Firstly, they didn't have much challenges in the streets as they were walking around. In the streets in South Africa, as we said in the previous video, that the use of the South African identity documents and also Aslam documents presented them with challenges either in the streets in the cities of Johannesburg or whenever they were going back to Zimbabwe for holidays. But with the granting of special permits, for the last 13 years, people have been traveling freely to and from Zimbabwe to visit their families because they are using Zimbabwean passports. No questions have been asked. No one will have to use anti-netted areas to enter or to leave South Africa. Whenever people get to roadblocks in around South Africa, they will simply present their passports with the permits, and they will be not be bothered by the police or the authorities. At the workplace, some were able to negotiate for better working conditions with their employers, as we said in the previous video, that others were working long hours, up to about 15 or 18 hours a day. But with the granting of the special permits, some, of course, had their conditions improving. But of course, others still struggling. They were able to negotiate for better wages. Those that had difficulties or were unfairly dismissed at work were able to approach CCMA and then the labor court. We saw an increased number of people or who are working as domestic workers who would come to us seeking advice whenever there are issues at the workplace. But what we noted is that people will not, or the workers in the domestic sector, migrant workers will not join in trade unions, but they will only seek the services of a trade union whenever there are problems at the workplace. And we're always advised that every worker has a right to join a trade union movement. Now, with the cancellation or non-renewal of the Zimbabwe exemption permits or special permits as they are popularly known, it means that domestic workers who are unable to move to other visas either will have to relocate back to Zimbabwe, as we had discussed, or in other countries, or join the many undocumented domestic workers that work in South Africa. This, of course, present itself with the challenges, as we discussed previously, that one will have to use someone's account to keep their money in, or for the purposes of them receiving their salaries. And we spoke about the challenges that this presents. But of course, we did have some domestic workers or some workers who came in who were professional or semi-professional before 2010, who could not move to other sectors of the economy or practice their skill, as it were, because they did not have correct papers, so they would come and work as domestic workers. But with the granting of the special permits in 2010, we saw some domestic workers who were trained as teachers and nurses in Zimbabwe, because now they had correct papers. They would register with the relevant bodies, the South African Nursing Council, and South African educators to practice their profession. So we saw a movement from such individuals moving from working as domestic workers to practicing their profession either as nurses, as teachers. But of course, there are some who trained as teachers who still remain working as domestic workers. And this number, of course, increased with those that came after 2010 who are working as a domestic workers, because with the lack of papers, they would not. And then you have, as you know, that in the Zimbabwean education system, it goes up to A level, advanced level, which then after A level, either you go to college, to university, and so forth. So you have a number of A-level graduates that are working as domestic workers, and the many that we speak to is that after their A levels, they did not go to college, so they do not have a course or a profession other than that they are A-level graduates. They then join in the ranks of uh, those that work as domestic workers. And of course, we have a number of O-level graduates, ordinary level graduates that work as domestic workers. People mainly from Zimbabwe who work as domestic workers are people that went up to O level. Is not like the majority are people that maybe did not go to secondary or high school. They went to secondary, high school, then they joined the domestic in the work industry. Of course, you do have, as I've said, that since 2010, after the granting of the special permits, those that then came after, even those that were teaching in Zimbabwe, because of the salaries that are paid to Zimbabwean teachers, they will find it better to work in South Africa as a domestic worker as opposed to continuing to teach in Zimbabwe, working as a teacher in Zimbabwe. So, as we conclude this video, there have been a great improvement under the special permits when people were using special permits. In the next video, we'll then discuss the challenges which many are likely to face if the South African government that does not review its decision to grant a special permit to those of domestic workers. They are going to continue to be abused if they are going to continue to remain in the Republic and working. So we'll discuss this in the next video. You might be a domestic worker or you have a relative who's a domestic worker from migrant community. Please share with us your own views, the challenges that you are going through. Let's have this conversation. Please like this video, circulate and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Otherwise, have a great day. Goodbye.